Chairman Keene, Vice Chairman Hamilton, and Commission members, I appreciate the opportunity to participate in your inquiry into the facts and circumstances surrounding the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks against the United States. My written statement addresses the questions posed in your letter of invitation, and I would respectfully request that it be entered into the record. This morning, I will summarize some of the key points about how the FAA Office of Intelligence received, assessed, and disseminated intelligence prior to the fall of 2001, and also highlight some of the process improvements. Before beginning, however, I would like to express my deepest sympathies to the families, friends, and co-workers of those who perished on September 11, 2001. As a tribute to them, a wreath hangs on the door of our Intelligence Watch as a silent reminder of the importance of our mission in keeping the nation's transportation infrastructure and its travelers secure. On September 11, 2001, I was the director of the Office of Intelligence, which was part of the Civil Aviation Security Organization of the FAA. The office was tasked with identification, analysis, and dissemination of intelligence information focusing on terrorism and other threats to U.S. civil aviation. Although the magnitude of the events of September 11, 2001 had not previously been seen, FAA's 24-hour intelligence watch had managed multiple crises prior to the tragic suicide hijackings. The expertise of our analysts and a well-established set of standard operating procedures enabled the office to quickly realign and provide extended around-the-clock coverage of the incident and its aftermath. This cadre of analysts, although small, worked feverishly to provide senior FAA and DOT decision-makers with an immediate assessment of the events and possible additional near-term threats. As a consumer of intelligence, FAA identified its information needs in detailed statements of intelligence interest to those agencies responsible for producing most of the intelligence on terrorism, namely CIA, the Department of State, FBI, NSA, and the Defense Intelligence Agency. The newly created Terrorist Threat Integration Center now plays a role in that effort. FAA received a daily stream of threat reporting and finished intelligence from these agencies and identified, on average, 1 to 200 classified reports each day that merited closer review. To enhance access to relevant intelligence reporting, FAA assigned liaison officers to CIA, FBI, and State Department. Their primary duties were to identify and pursue information regarding actual or potential threats to civil aviation. Occasionally, they would review information that provided insight about a terrorist threat or incident, but may not have been disseminated to the FAA. In these cases, the liaison officers requested release of the information and would educate the agencies as to why such information was of importance to the FAA. In some cases, they were successful in getting release for FAA. In other situations, due to the sensitivity of sources and methods, the information was not approved for release. When analysts working in the 24-hour intelligence watch identified current or future threats to aviation, a preliminary evaluation of its validity was made in coordination with the originator and other relevant agencies. FAA intelligence analysts examined the plausibility of the information based on their expertise regarding the known intent and capability of the alleged hijackers, the method of attack, as well as a characterization of the reliability of the source made by the agency supplying the information. The characterization of the source is a significant factor, as decision makers depend on threat assessments based on credible information from reliable sources. Once a report was identified as an actual or potential threat, FAA analysts opened an intelligence case file, an ICF, to isolate and follow up on the threat to its logical conclusion, adding any new information to either validate or discount the threat. And there were several hundred of these ICFs that were opened at any one time and that we were working on. FAA analysts prepared threat assessments based on analyses of these reports and coordinated these assessments with FBI and CIA to ensure factual accuracy and analytic logic. Intelligence is only useful, however, if it reaches the operators and policymakers in an actionable format and timely manner. Prior to September 11, 2001, FAA intelligence analysts worked closely with specialists in the offices of Civil Aviation Security Operations and Aviation Policy who viewed the intelligence information against the vulnerability of the target. in an attempt to establish the level of risk of a successful attack. These offices promulgated security countermeasures to reduce the level of risk as appropriate. This threat and risk assessment process was applied to both current and strategic threats and was used to determine the long-term baseline aviation security posture for a region or a country. Potential aviation threat information was communicated to those that needed it at the operational level, primarily through the preparation and issuance of information circulars which alerted recipients to possible threats, and security directives which required air carriers and airports to implement specific security measures to counter a threat. Regulated entities such as the air carriers and airports received the notices directly from FAA, while airport law enforcement elements had access to them through the Airport Law Enforcement Agencies network. When declassification of information was not possible, the 24-hour intelligence watch verbally alerted cleared aviation security representatives to threats or events that were of a potential interest through secure telephone calls. Now that I've explained how the FAA received and processed threat information prior to the events of 2001, I would like to highlight intelligence support that the FAA Office of Intelligence provided to the transportation industry stakeholders and other government agencies as it transitioned to TSA. Prior to September 11th, the FAA had published security directives that required air carriers not to transport certain individuals that were known or suspected threats to aviation security. Immediately following September 11th, the FAA began to administer a watch list for the FBI as part of the investigation of the hijackings. By the end of 2001, the FAA had assumed responsibility for this watch list, which now includes individuals known to pose or suspected of posing a threat to aviation or national security. This mechanism enables the notification of law enforcement and the application of defensive measures. We also stood up a new division with analysts whose primary duty was to provide support to the Federal Air Marshal Service. Also, the Aviation and Transportation Security Act of November 2001 tasked TSA to receive, assess, and distribute intelligence information related to transportation security. Thus, the new Transportation Security Intelligence Service became responsible for assessing threats to all modes of transportation, aviation, maritime, and land, and now provides threat warning products to stakeholders in all modes of transportation. As a result of the steps taken to improve operations in the aftermath of September 11, 2001 attacks, the TSIS, the successor to the FAA's Office of Intelligence, now enjoys increased access to intelligence and law enforcement information, which has undoubtedly had a positive impact on the security of U.S. transportation assets, both in the homeland and abroad. More information is being shared among more agencies than ever before, thus improving situational awareness of potential threats to U.S. transportation assets in the U.S. and abroad. I would like to provide briefly some additional granularity on some of the beneficial developments and a word or two regarding the areas that we are continuing to seek improvement. Regarding intelligence from the FBI, prior to September 11, 2001, FAA did not receive a daily flow of raw reports and finished intelligence from the FBI. The Bureau did not consider itself an intelligence production agency, perhaps because of the statutory restrictions on the dissemination of information it collected in its investigative role. Recently, however, the flow of reporting from FBI has significantly increased. The USA Patriot Act of 2001 amended previous laws that had prevented the FBI from sharing grand jury and Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act information, FISA information. The creation of the National Joint Terrorism Task Force, the NJTTF, has also expanded the flow of information from the FBI. TSIS has assigned a full-time liaison officer to the NJTF in recognition of the value of tapping into the information reported up from local JTFs throughout the country. TSIS's NJTF representatives also provide operational information that supports FBI operations and investigations. Regarding information sharing and coordination among agencies, TSIS receives a copy of the Daily Matrix that highlights current critical threats to U.S. interests. Agencies also more frequently coordinate finished intelligence products, and CIA, TTIC, and FBI more routinely solicit input and comment from TSA on threat assessments. To build on a new spirit of sharing and coordination, TSIS has assigned liaison officers to TTIC and to NSA. The consolidation of TSA Customs and Immigration within the Department of Homeland Security has also led to enhanced information sharing and coordination of not only intelligence but operations as well. TSIS has also contributed to the stand-up of the TSC, which, as you know, was created to provide information on known or suspected terrorists from various U.S. government databases to federal screening operations, Border Patrol, and state and local law enforcement. 2 TSIS intelligence analysts provide direct support to the TSC leadership on matters regarding the TSA watch list program. The intelligence and law enforcement communities have always provided TSA with reporting regarding specific threats, and since late 2001 there has been a sizable increase in the volume of intelligence reporting being disseminated to TSA. Nevertheless, more information about terrorist infrastructures, both in the United States and abroad, would assist TSIS intelligence analysts in forecasting potential threats in areas where U.S. transportation assets are located or provide service. Such information would allow TSIS to provide better situational awareness to TSA executives, field operators, and industry stakeholders. Despite some remaining obstacles, the intelligence and law enforcement communities have made great strides in information sharing and coordination since the tragic events of September 11, 2001. TSIS will continue to review our analytic skill sets and dissemination mechanisms, improving them where possible, and will remain focused on providing TSA and DHS executives, operators, and industry stakeholders with an accurate assessment of current and future threats to the U.S. infrastructure. Chairman Keane, Vice Chairman Hamilton, and members of the Commission, I recognize the importance of your task on behalf of the American people and appreciate the opportunity to participate in these proceedings. I would be happy to address any questions that you may have for me. Thank you.